The bright studio lights of The View reflected across the stage as the audience settled into their seats. The atmosphere was energetic, the kind that usually promised laughter, celebrity interviews, and lively conversation. On this particular morning, however, nobody could have predicted how tense the next hour would become. Behind the scenes, producers rushed between dressing rooms, checking schedules and reviewing talking points. The guest of the day was Russell Crowe, the award-winning actor known for his commanding screen presence and straightforward personality. The hosts were preparing for what they expected to be a routine celebrity interview. As the cameras rolled, the audience applauded enthusiastically. The hosts exchanged greetings and introduced the day's topics. Everything appeared normal. Smiles filled the stage, and the conversation flowed smoothly through the opening segment. Then the moment arrived. The announcer welcomed Russell Crowe to the show. The audience erupted into cheers as he walked onto the set. Dressed in a dark suit and wearing a relaxed smile, he shook hands with the hosts before taking his seat. At first, the interview followed the usual pattern. Questions about his latest project, stories from film sets, and light-hearted memories entertained viewers. Crowe answered comfortably, occasionally making the audience laugh with his dry sense of humor. Several minutes later, the tone began to shift. Joy. Behar leaned forward in her chair and asked a question that seemed harmless at first. She brought up comments from an old interview and suggested that Crowe had sometimes appeared difficult to work with. A few members of the audience chuckled. Crowe smiled politely. "I've heard that one before," he replied. Joy continued, adding another remark that hinted at his reputation. The audience laughed again, though this time the reaction was more uncertain. Crowe's smile faded slightly. "Interesting," he said calmly. "Do you think it's fair to judge someone based on stories that are decades old?" The room grew quieter. Joy shrugged. "Well, people remember those stories." Crowe nodded slowly. "People remember stories. That's true, but they don't always remember the facts." A subtle tension entered the conversation. The other hosts exchanged quick glances. Joy pressed forward, suggesting that public figures had to accept criticism because it came with fame. Crowe listened carefully before responding. "Criticism is fine," he said, "but criticism should be informed. Otherwise, it's just repeating rumors." The audience reacted with a mixture of applause and nervous laughter. For the first time, the interview no longer felt routine. Joy smiled, though her expression revealed surprise. "So you're saying the media got it wrong?" Crowe leaned back. "I'm saying that sometimes people build entire opinions from headlines, instead of real experiences." The audience applauded again. The atmosphere became noticeably more serious. One of the co-hosts attempted to redirect the discussion toward Crowe's current film, but Joy wasn't finished. She mentioned another controversy from years earlier and jokingly asked whether Crowe regretted being the tough guy of Hollywood. The audience laughed. Crowe remained silent for a moment. Then he spoke. "You know what's interesting?" he said. "People often ask actors about mistakes they made 20 years ago, but they rarely ask themselves whether they've learned anything in the last 20 years. The audience instantly reacted. Several people clapped loudly, others gasped. Joy blinked. The comment wasn't shouted. It wasn't aggressive, yet it landed with surprising force. The studio suddenly felt smaller. Joy attempted to laugh it off. "Are you saying I haven't learned anything?" Crowe raised an eyebrow. "I didn't say that." More laughter erupted from the audience. The tension increased. The exchange quickly became the center of attention. Producers backstage watched monitors closely. One whispered, "This is getting uncomfortable." Meanwhile, viewers at home were glued to their screens. Joy adjusted in her chair. "You seem pretty defensive today." Crowe smiled again, but this time there was an edge to it. "No," he replied. "I'm simply answering the questions." A wave of applause swept through the audience. The conversation continued. Joy challenged him on several points, and Crowe answered each one with measured confidence. Rather than raising his voice, he responded thoughtfully, often turning the focus back toward broader issues like media narratives, public perception, and accountability. As the minutes passed, many audience members appeared increasingly impressed by his composure. At one point, Joy interrupted one of his answers. Crowe stopped speaking. He waited. The room fell silent. When she finished, he politely said, "May I complete the answer?" The audience burst into applause. Even some of the hosts smiled awkwardly. The interruption had backfired. Crowe continued, "One thing I've learned over the years is that listening matters. Real conversations happen when people listen." The audience applauded again. Joy looked visibly frustrated. She attempted another joke, but the crowd's reaction was noticeably weaker than before. Momentum had shifted. The actor now appeared calm and collected, while the host seemed increasingly rattled. The discussion reached its most dramatic moment when Joy asked whether he cared too much about how the public viewed him. Crowe paused. Then he delivered the line that would dominate headlines in this fictional story. "I care about truth," he said. "Popularity comes and goes. Truth stays." The audience exploded into applause. Some people even stood. For several seconds, the noise filled the studio. Joy tried to continue speaking, but the applause drowned her out. The cameras captured the stunned expressions around the table. Backstage staff exchanged looks of disbelief. Nobody had expected the interview to unfold this way. When the applause finally faded, the conversation softened. The remaining questions focused on Crowe's work, upcoming projects, and personal growth. The tension gradually disappeared. Yet the earlier exchange remained impossible to ignore. As the segment ended, the hosts thanked Crowe for joining them. He smiled warmly. "Thank you for having me." The audience applauded once more. As he left the stage, viewers were left discussing every moment of the interview. Some believed Joy had pushed too hard. Others felt Crowe had defended himself brilliantly. Many simply appreciated seeing a genuine exchange rather than a scripted celebrity appearance. Backstage, the mood was mixed. Producers discussed the unexpected tension. The hosts reviewed the interview. Crowe quietly greeted crew members before heading toward the exit. One staff member reportedly told him, "That was intense." Crowe laughed. "Sometimes conversations are." Outside the studio, social media exploded with reactions. Clips from the interview spread rapidly. Viewers debated who had won the exchange, while commentators analyzed every word. Yet beyond the drama, one lesson stood out. The most powerful moments had not come from shouting, insults, or personal attacks. They came from calm confidence. Throughout the entire clash, Crowe never raised his voice. Instead, he relied on patience, careful wording, and composure. Whether people agreed with him or not, they couldn't deny that he had remained steady under pressure, and that was what made the encounter unforgettable. Long after the cameras stopped rolling and the studio lights dimmed, people continued discussing the remarkable interview, a conversation that began like any other celebrity appearance, but evolved into a dramatic battle of words, leaving audiences fascinated until the very end.